Happy Imbolc! We're on the eve of Imbolc season. Imbolc is a lesser known and lesser understood Sabbath, and yet it's a time of hope and faith and light and brightness and warmth around us, even in the midst of all the cold and the darkness that might seem like it's outside right now. Now, at the same time, this is also the perfect time for dedications, for consecrations, sympathetic magic, and fire and candle magic of all kinds. So if you are looking for ways to celebrate this great Sabbath, look no further because tonight I'm going to be sharing with you 10 ways to celebrate Imbolc. So merry meet, I'm Aislin, this is Ask Aislin, and I'm here on the eve of Imbolc. So welcome to everyone who's joining me. If you're here, you can leave questions and comments in the chat to let me know that you're here. And I'm going to dive right in. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Imbolc first, and then we'll go into 10 ways that you can celebrate. All right, hello, hi. It's nice to see Amy here and a few others joining us. All right, so Imbolc is a cross-quarter day, and so what this means is that it falls between, right at the midpoint between a solstice and a equinox. In this case, the winter solstice and the spring equinox. Now, traditionally, we celebrate Imbolc on February 1st to February 2nd. So typically the eve of February 1st or sundown on February 1st to sundown on February 2nd. But in reality, since Imbolc is an astrological midpoint, astrological Imbolc actually changes every single year. And so this year in 2024, astrological Imbolc actually doesn't fall until noon on February 4th here in Pacific time in California where I am. So you can do the math for wherever that is for you. But for most of us, that's going to be about the 4th of Sunday, the 4th of February. So in my own coven, my own tradition, we typically celebrate the holidays as close to those astrological points as we possibly can. But at the same time, it's important to remember that Imbolc is a season, not just a singular day. And so we don't have to just celebrate on one day. Honestly, tomorrow is just the beginning of the seasonal energy that will last for approximately 4 to 5 weeks before it starts to shift and feel more like Ostara energy as we get closer to the spring equinox. So how can we celebrate? So tonight I'm going to share with you 10 different ways that you could celebrate, and you can do any combination of these, and just know, like I said, you got plenty of time to try out some of these ideas. And for those who are joining us, hi, I see some more. Hi, Cindy and Jen and Misty. Everybody's here. So if you are here with me live, you can leave questions, comments. We'll have a Q&A at the end. Doesn't have to be about Imbolc. It can be anything witchcraft, shadow work, energy work related. And if you are watching this back in replay later on YouTube, make sure to subscribe to our channel, Body Mind Witchcraft, and you won't miss any future episodes. All right, so the first idea I'm sharing with you tonight is cleansing and consecrating ritual tools or magical tools, whatever you want to call them. So this is a perfect time for really turning inward in a lot of places, not here in LA, though we're about to get hit by a lot of rain, I'm hearing. But in a lot of places it's cold. And so people turn more inward, they're more absorbed in their studies. This is a great time to join a class or a course or something and learn something new when you have this time where you're kind of reflecting and turning inward. But it's also a really good time to kind of take stock of the things around you. What's in order, what's not in order? What could we clean and cleanse, right? To move us more forward into the spring as it comes and everything starts over, renewal and rebirth. So I love to reconsecrate and recleanse my tools at Imbolc. And so this can include anything, your athame, it can include your chalice, it can include your tarot cards, anything you've gotten. It can be new things you've just recently gotten or tools you've had for a long time. And you can cleanse and consecrate them through the 4 elements. That's usually what I do. So very simple. So I have this chalice. I just actually found this a few days ago at a thrift store. And a little backstory on this piece. This is actually was a piece that was sold by Avon, I think in the late 70s or early 80s. And my mom had a piece just like this, and still has it to this day. But as a little girl, I always loved it. It was on one of her shelves. And I found this at a thrift store a couple of days ago. So a perfect cauldron. So if I was going to cleanse and consecrate this, I would start by gathering something to represent the four elements. So something very easy to do is get a bowl of salt. You can get a bowl of water, get a candle, and then some kind of something to represent air, incense, a sage stick or other kind of herbal stick, or you could just blow on it or use a feather. But we want something to represent the four elements. And then you can write your own consecrations. They can be very simple, like I consecrate thee in the name of the goddess and the god, that you'll be pure when I use you. I'm just making this up on the spot, but it could be something very simple. Or you can look them up online and you can find some to use. And you can sprinkle salt over it to represent cleansing and consecrating it through earth. You can sprinkle some water over it to represent water, put it through the candle flame or move it over the candle flame. And then just in case it was like something like tarot cards that would be flammable, you just want to make sure they're well over it so they wouldn't catch on fire. And that would represent fire. And then putting it through the smoke or blowing on it or putting a feather around it to represent air. And that takes care of cleansing and consecrating it. Now, another thing you can do is just visualize white light filling the vessel or surrounding the tool that you're cleansing and consecrating. And that can be another way, just through your own intention, cleansing and consecrating. The word to consecrate actually means to set aside for a dedicated use. So essentially what it does is it takes this, whatever this was, I believe it was actually a vase or something when it was sold in the 70s or 80s, but you would take this vase and which is has a mundane use, and through my cleansing and consecrating it, I have now set it as my chalice and it now has a magical use. So so that is cleansing and consecrating, and you can do it with any tools that you have, anything that you use in your magical workings, and a great time to do it is Imbolc. So that is idea number one, cleansing and consecrating your tools. All right, so let's go on to number two. So the second way that you can celebrate Imbolc is by working with the goddess Brigid. Imbolc is a very interesting holiday in the 8 Sabbats of the Wheel. Of all the Sabbats, it's the one that's most closely tied to one specific deity. So when I think back to the history of my coven, which at this point has been around, I've been the high priestess of it for 13 plus years, but have been in a coven before that as well. And I think back to all of the different Imbolcs we've celebrated. And I can't remember a single time, except for one time, when we didn't actually honor Brigid. But as an eclectic coven, at our other Sabbats, we honor a wide variety of different deities over the various different Sabbats. So there's a reason why Brigid is so synonymous with Imbolc. She is the Celtic goddess of fertility, of childbirth. She is the goddess of smiths and smith working, of crafters and crafting. She's the goddess of inspiration, purification, poetry, fire. So it kind of makes sense why she would get tied to this holiday. Now, the legends say that she was born on February 1st, so that also syncs her to the holiday. And I even read, and I shared this last year, but I'll share it again, that they actually made a day for her in Ireland, not even Saint Brigid's Day, or maybe it is Saint Brigid's Day, but it became a holiday on par with like a bank holiday. So what it shows us is that the goddess is alive and well. We can call her Saint Brigid in the Catholic Church, but she is alive and well in Ireland and all other places of the world as well. Now, Brigid is a triple goddess, so at Imbolc she's typically celebrated either in her maiden form or in her full triple goddess form. Now, as the maiden, she is a triple goddess. She reminds us of the birth and the death and the rebirth of all cycles. As the maiden, she reminds us of the promise of spring that's coming soon. Because remember, again, our ancestors, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but our ancestors looked at this time, especially those who are from northern climates or far southern climates where it was cold. Like closer to the South Pole, but places where it would be cold in the winter, didn't necessarily know that the sun was coming back the next year. They didn't necessarily know that there was going to be food the next year. And this was a time when the food pantries were running low. and it would be questionable whether there was enough to get through the winter. And so honoring her in this form as the maiden who brings the fertility of the land would have been so important to our ancestors, which explains why she became such a beloved deity at this time of the year. Now, how we can honor Brigid, there's a variety of different ways you can honor her. You can just simply call her energy into your ritual space. You can honor her by giving her offerings. So some offerings for Brigid are milk and cheese. Imbolc is a holiday very much tied to dairy. And in fact, some say it stands for oy milk, or that's the translation, oy milk, which translates into English as ewes milk. So this was a time when the animals might be, people were getting as much dairy and milk as they could from the animals to try to sustain them further through the winter. And there was always this hope of, right, the fertility of these animals and how they could sustain the people. So milk and cheese are great offerings for Brigid. Candles, always tied to the holiday of Imbolc, or its Catholic name, Candlemas. Blackberries, berries that are prevalent in the winter time. Blackberries and other berries prevalent in the winter time. Bread, coins would be other good offerings for her. Crafts of any kind. Like, for example, a Breed's cross or a Breed's dolly. Now, I tried to find the Breed's cross I made years ago because I wanted to show it to you. I couldn't find it. So if you are interested in making a Breed's cross, I just suggest Googling it, Breed's cross, and you're going to find instructions on how to make these. This is a equal armed cross. Looks very similar to a Celtic cross. Typically, it would be made out of reeds or hay or wheat strands. But if you can't find that, what people typically do is they use pipe cleaners. So a lot of the instructions you're going to find online are pipe cleaners, and you can get red and white ones, which are the colors of Imbolc, and make yourself a Breed's cross, and then place that on an altar or offer that to Brigid. You can also make a Breed's dolly. That would be another good offering to her. And this is typically made out of corn husks, traditionally, that were left over from Lunaza, all the way on the other side of the wheel, and then fashioned into a doll that was oftentimes placed in a bed by the fire. It represents fertility. Sometimes she was called the bride as well, because she would welcome in the masculine energy of spring, who would fertilize her, and then we would have a fertile spring coming in all ways. So if you don't know what a Breed's dolly looks like, again, Google that as well, and you'll find simple instructions on how to make one. And those are great offerings to Brigid, but also great things to put on your Imbolc altar. And then other good offerings to Brigid, like I said, any crafts that you make, you could offer her, like jewelry that you've made, anything you've made, candles. Spears and arrows are often offered to her, and poetry. Which is a great thing to do at Imbolc, is write poetry, or if you're not a writer, to read poetry. Read your favorite poetry to her, and that can be a fantastic offering. So that is idea number 2, is honoring the goddess Brigid. All right, number 3. So the third way to work with the energy of Imbolc or celebrate Imbolc is candle magic. So to me, of all the holidays of the wheel, Imbolc is really full of so much fire magic. There are so many other fire holidays as well, but this one especially, I think it just always takes me back to 25 or so years ago when I first found the path. And in Boston, anybody who's spent New England winters know it can get a brutally cold, a bitter winter. And so many memories of being in my dorm room or my apartment and just lighting as many candles as I could with my witchy friends, and just really welcoming the light back in, or really welcoming the light and bringing it close to us to sustain us through that cold winter. Because again, this is a holiday of hope and faith. It's that hope and faith that the good times, the brightness will come again. And that is both physically when it comes to weather, but also symbolically when it comes to just the trying and troubling times we go through, and and how we keep that spark of faith and hope within us. And so that to me, that is the spirit of Imbolc. So just as many candles as you possibly can light. You can use colors for intentions if you'd like, or you can just use the traditional Imbolc colors, which are usually red and white and gold. And so I have some prayer candles here. I'm fortunate enough that in my neighborhood they sell these at CVS Pharmacy, and all of the grocery stores. But you can get some of these. These are great, and they're usually just a couple of dollars. And just light them all around the room. And here I've got red and white. But great to light as many candles as you can. If you're doing candle magic, this would be more just, we're gonna have like candles all over. But if you wanted to do some candle magic and you wanted to carve things into the candles, or perhaps you wanted to dress the candles with oils or herbs, then I would get candles that weren't in these glass containers. And you could just get pillar candles or tapers or something like that, or votives. But great time to do candle magic. Try candle gazing if you've never done that before, but just as much light and warmth and heat as you can bring in. Light a fire, that would be another way to kind of bring that fire energy in. Okay, so that's our third way to celebrate Imbolc, and that is candle magic. All right, just saying hi to everybody here. If you've got any questions, comments, leave them in the chat. And even if you're watching this back in replay, you can leave questions too. I go back later and I answer everybody's questions. Okay, so the fourth way to celebrate Imbolc is to make or eat colcannon. So colcannon is Irish mashed potatoes. And if you have never heard of it, I'd recommend just Googling it, colcannon. I'll try to see if I can find a recipe later. I'll drop it underneath in the comments here. But it's very easy. It's made out of potatoes, usually heavy cream or butter. But if you are dairy free, you could just get a dairy free alternative for that. And then leeks or green onions. And it is fantastic. I've made it many, many, many Imbolcs when we would have potlucks for our coven. I often would make that. I don't really have the time to cook anymore, so it's been some years since I've made colcannon for us. But it's great to try. And if you are not a cook, see if you can find somebody who will make it for you, because it's delicious and just a great, a great thing to bring into your Imbolc celebrations. You can even offer some of it to Brighid, or place it on your altar as an offering to the ancestors as well. So that is colcannon. All right, the fifth way to celebrate Imbolc is through cleansing or blessing your home. So this is a great time to do house blessings. Even if your house isn't new or you didn't just move into it, you can always bless your home every year at Imbolc. It's also a great time for child and pet blessings as well. So there's a lot of protective energy in Imbolc. So you see a lot of cleansings, consecrating, purification, and protection magic done here too. So one thing with cleansing the home or purifying the home is that it moves out stuck and stagnant energy. So you just can feel this even just opening windows. Sometimes people like to open windows even despite it being winter, and just get fresh air through, right? That in and of itself is moving stuck and stagnant energy. But you can take this to another level. You can cleanse your home through sage sticks or other herbal sticks. You can take that around the perimeter of the house. You could cleanse the home just through asperging or through using water. So you just get a bowl of water. You could consecrate it first as having like a sacred purpose, and then go around your home, go through the rooms, and sprinkle water along the edges of the walls. That is a great way to cleanse and consecrate, or to cleanse and bless your home. You can use bells as well, or anything that makes sound, rattles, that just kind of moves stuck and stagnant energy. And you can do that the same way, just kind of go through the rooms and shake bells or ring bells or shake rattles. And you can use your broom, so ritual sweeping, just moving around the edges and sweeping out the old energy. You could use a feather. Asperging is where you would take like a stick or something, a twig, and dip it into water, and then you fling the water out to the edges as well. So any of these techniques are great for cleansing the home. And of course you can use intention or bringing in white light. But just the idea here is we just want to move the stuck and stagnant energy of winter out so that we welcome in the energy of spring, which is coming. Okay, so that is cleansing and consecrating your home. Okay, so the next idea is sympathetic magic. So I mentioned this a bit before. Sympathetic magic has to do with us creating magic that is sympathetic towards what is going on outside in the wheel of the year. Now, our ancestors, like I had mentioned before, didn't always understand that the sun would come back every year, that there would always be this promise of spring. And so they believed that their magic was necessary in order to bring the sun back. Now, as modern witches, we know that the wheel of the year is going to turn whether we're there or not working with it, right? So, in some ways, our sympathetic magic is what would be the word? It's just a gesture towards like us being in concert with the energy around us. But I do believe that as witches, we help raise the energy and the consciousness of other people. I feel like much of the world is very much disconnected from nature, disconnected from the wheel, and so we as witches we help aid the turning of the wheel by just kind of raising the consciousness of people and the energy around us. So we can use sympathetic magic. Like a very simple example would be lighting a candle, which is totally in sympathy with the season, right? So lighting a candle, but instead of just lighting it to have it there, or lighting it and dedicating it to Brigid, or using it for a spell for yourself, you would light that candle and so that it would represent the sun, and there would be that very clear intention. This candle represents the sun, and it represents the lengthening of the days that are coming. It represents the spark of light that we keep within us during darkness. I mean, there's so many layers here that we can go with, but that is a way that we can you can use sympathetic magic at Imbolc. Just saying hi to a few more people joining us. Hi, Melinda. Hi, Rebecca. Hi, everybody. Okay, so next up, another idea for Imbolc are dedications or rededications. Okay, so like I mentioned, Imbolc is a time where we are often pulled inward. Some of this has to do with the energy around us. It's the coldness around us can contribute to it, or just simply the fact that we are in this part of the year where it's not quite as obvious yet that we're in the waxing half of the year. That's sometimes kind of interesting to think about. The days are actually growing longer, even though many of us are poised on some of the coldest weather that's about to come. So it's a great time, like I said, to turn inward. It's a great time to reflect on your path. Where are you going? Where have you come from? How has the journey been so far? Are you happy with the journey, or would you like something different? Would you like something more? And so what we can do during this time is we can dedicate or rededicate ourselves to our path. And that can look different for everybody. It can be just a simple vow that you take. That I take this vow to dedicate myself to the path of witchcraft, to study the craft, to learn my place in the wheel, to understand how to manipulate energy and how to use energy to better the world and better myself. So it could be a very simple vow like that, just taking it on your path. Or you can dedicate or take a vow to a deity. So maybe there's a deity that you've been interested in working with. Now it would be a great time to dedicate yourself to that deity. And that can look very similar too. It doesn't have to be a big production. You can leave an offering for that deity and just make that simple intention. I offer myself to this deity, or I take a vow to this deity to work with them for the next X amount of time and see where this path takes me. So you can also dedicate yourself to a coven, or to like a branch of witchcraft, or a group, right? So many people will also take vows of other kinds at this time, and so I'm going to share with you at the end. We have a very special Imbolc ritual coming up in just a few days, that we're inviting everyone to. And we are going to be helping everybody write vows for Imbolc that will help them balance all the elemental energies within them. So I'll share a little bit more about that at the end, but if you'd like to get in the spirit of kind of taking vows at Imbolc, I invite you, I really encourage you to join that ritual. Okay, so another idea for Imbolc is purification. So our ancestors, many of our ancestors fasted during this time. Now, this has a physical reason because, like I mentioned, in many of these places that were winter, that were very hot, far north and very far south, these places were covered in a lot of snow, and it was people had no option but to go without food at times, go with a little bit less, or sometimes a lot less than they needed. Now, fasting is no longer necessary for us as modern witches. Most of us don't need to do that, right, as a necessity. But some choose to do it as just a way of purification. And so there are other ways to purify. So like you could take a 1 day fast if that's safe for you. It's not always safe for everybody, but if it's safe for you, you could take a 1 day fast on Imbolc. Now, there's plenty of other ways to purify yourself. You could purify yourself through breath work. You can purify yourself through mantras. You could purify yourself through a purifying bath. Take a nice, beautiful, cleansing Imbolc bath, and you could put oils in the bath or flowers, rose petals. If you're like me and you don't have a bathtub, you only have showers in the house, you can take a ritual shower, a purifying ritual shower. And you can actually get cheesecloth and put herbs in it, and you can tie that up to the shower head. And when the water comes down, it's going to actually bring the herbs into the shower with you. So there's a lot of ways, or you can use cleansing and purifying soaps or different things like that. But the point is that finding a way to purify yourself during this time, not just cleansing your house or your tools, but actually cleansing yourself. You are the most important tool in your practice. This can be a very powerful experience at Imbolc. So next thing, do something creative. Creativity is synonymous with Imbolc. Like we mentioned earlier, Brigid is a goddess of creativity. She's a goddess of creative projects. And creativity is connected to the element of fire, which is so prevalent at Imbolc. Try something new that you've never done before. Try something creative, right? Or maybe there's something you've done in the past, a creative project you've worked on in the past. Bring that back in. And for those who are feeling creatively stuck, there's a great book called The Artist Way by Julia Cameron. I highly recommend it. It's a 12-chapter book. You can take it a chapter a week or a chapter a month, and you can make it a whole year-long study. But a great book on how to rekindle your creativity. So if you're somebody who felt you've been creative in the past and you're dried up creatively, great book to kind of spark that flame. And if you're somebody who's never really felt very creative, it's a great book for you too, because it just shows you there's creativity in all of us. But try to be creative in some way during Imbolc, and that you'll really be in the spirit of that kind of energy. Okay. I see Kurt said it won't let me access the comments using my tablet, but your phone will. Yeah, that's weird too, huh? Well, I could see you here in the comments. Hi, Kurt. Okay, so a couple more ideas for Imbolc, and then we'll move into the Q&A. So another thing that you can do is to build, I guess this is the last idea here. So build an Imbolc altar. So a couple people have been asking me, what do I do to build, what are some ideas for building my Imbolc altar? So this can look different for everybody. So for those of you who build kind of elaborate altars, perhaps you'll use a lot of the things that I mentioned here. But other people may not have a lot of space, or maybe you're kind of new to the craft. That's okay. I love the tops of bookcases for altars. Just clear off the top of a bookcase and you can place some items and you can make your Imbolc altar that way. So I first like to start with colors. The colors of Imbolc are red and white and gold. So if you can get, like I mentioned earlier, the red and white kind of candles like this are great for an altar. And also anything gold. If you can find gold candles, not always easy to find, but if you can find gold candles, those would be great as well. Now, other things that you can place on the altar, well, so backing up with the color too, is that you can put an altar cloth down And you don't have to have anything fancy for this. I literally went to Joann's, and you can find some of the scraps of fabric. I love getting some of the red velvet is really great there, and you can make, and some of it is just like these long runners like this, and they would be great over a bookcase, but you can also get wider fabric as well, so you can start that and put down your altar cloth, and then you can put your candles down. So then here's some other ideas of what you could place on the altar. Breed's cross or Breed's dolly, like we mentioned earlier. If you want to try to make one of those, look them up, and you'll find some simple instructions online, and that's a fun project for Imbolc, and can also be a great idea for your altar. The tools that you're going to consecrate, you could place on your altar. Flowers, coins, things that kind of remind us of spring would be really great for the altar. Like, I just love flowers. Red and white would be really perfect right now. Cauldron or chalice. So one symbol of the goddess, especially of Brigid, is the cauldron. And so the cauldron is a really great thing to place on the altar. So you could consecrate or reconsecrate your cauldron and then place that on the altar. And I did mention one translation of Imbolc is oy milk, or use milk, but another translation is in the belly. And so this is this idea that the seeds of spring are in the belly of the goddess. And so the chalice represents the goddess, therefore great for an Imbolc altar. If you don't have I said chalice. Cauldron represents the goddess in her womb, and so you could place that on the altar. If you don't have a cauldron, you can do a chalice as well, or a cup that you make into your chalice. So those would be some great ideas. The anvil and hammer, because that's connected to Brigid and her work as a smith worker. So sometimes that's used. I don't know how anybody's gonna put an anvil and hammer there, but you could put a hammer down, right? Or if you found a way to represent an anvil, perhaps you found a charm or something like that, that could be a good idea. Um, so those are some ideas for your altar, and you don't have to do all of it. It doesn't have to be elaborate, but I think at the very least I would work with the colors red, white, and perhaps gold if you can. Get some candles, maybe put down a cauldron, some coins, some flowers, and then a Breed's cross if you feel like making one of those. And that would be a great way to set up your altar. All right, so I am going to stop now. And that was 10 ways to celebrate Imbolc. So I hope that gave you some ideas. And again, remember, Imbolc is not just the singular day. It's not just happening tomorrow. In fact, we know it happens from the 1st to the 2nd if we're celebrating it traditionally. If we're celebrating it astrologically, it's on Sunday, kind of starting, the energy starts on Saturday into Sunday. And again, if we're celebrating it as a season, this energy is going to go into the 1st to 2nd week of March. So you have plenty of time to celebrate this fantastic Sabbath, which is one of my favorites. All right, so Q&A. I have some questions that have been sent to me, but if you're here live and would like to ask anything, put it in the chat. It doesn't have to be related to Imbolc. It can be anything related to witchcraft, shadow work, energy work. So let me go with the questions that I was asked. And then if you're here live, you can put anything in the comments you would like. Okay, so my first question comes from Rachel, and she has a question about shadow work. So she said, in regards to shadow work, how do I know what I don't know? Always a good question, right? How do I recognize the things that have happened to me so young, and she said really before memory, that have shaped how I deal with my life now? And then she said, of course, how do I program myself to live to my highest? Okay, so great question, because yes, of course, how would we find the answers to things that happened to us before we've even made memories? So shadow work helps us make connections between the things that we think about right now, the things we do right now, and things that have origins in their past. Now, those things can have origin in childhood, and they can have their origin in early adulthood. they can have their origin just a few years ago even. So sometimes we think shadow work's only about going far, far, far into the past. And while a lot of what we become, a lot of how our shadow develops happens as children, it also happens as adults as well. So what we do when we trace things back to their origin, we reveal the underlying motivations into how we are. That's the real key here. So we can go back to childhood, and or anywhere earlier in our lives, and we can trace back those origins to those things. Why are we the way that we are? So when we're children and even into teen years and adulthood, we are taught the way to be. We're taught how to act by those around us, whether it's our caregivers and family or the church. If we grew up in a church, school, society, everyone teaches us how to be, right? And so those things that don't align with the way that we are taught we should be, but yet there's still inherent qualities in us, those are the things that get fractured off and pushed into the shadows. And that therefore forms what we would call our shadow aspects, our shadow parts, or our shadow personality. Now, our shadow work will not allow us to go back to things that happened before memory because we can't really grasp things that happened before the brain was developed enough to form memory. But many of us can go back. I mean, some have memories as far back as 2 or 3. And even if you don't think you have memories, I've heard people say, that I don't really have any memories before like 10 or something like that. Your brain was capable of forming them. So those would be things that we could make connections with. So we may not be able to go all the way back to like infancy or toddler years, but we can go back pretty far and make those connections. So now, you won't know any of this when you first start. So when you're first starting shadow work, it's not like you're going to be sitting there like, how am I supposed to know any of this? You're not supposed to know any of this in the beginning, and that's okay. But as you work, as you do the shadow work, and that can look different for different people, some really respond well to just processing shadow work prompts or contemplating those. Some people work better doing more rituals or diving deep into past lives or working with archetypes. So, but as you start doing the work, whatever that looks like for you, more things will begin to be revealed. And what I have found is, and I've been doing it for many years now, but what I've found is, in the beginning, things come here and there, and as you progress through it, you'll find that you don't have to do a lot, and it's just the aha moments come frequently. It's just you kind of set your mind to like, why am I acting this way, or why do I feel this way, and you just spend a little time contemplating it, maybe mull it over for a few days, and the aha moments come. That may not always happen in the beginning, but with more shadow work it comes more easily. So as those things that are revealed, then they will naturally lose their power over you. That's the first key to shadow work. We become free of the things that were basically controlling our or motivating us that we didn't know about. Now, other things you may find that are revealed are not even yours. They can be ancestral, meaning that they're not even from relatives that are alive right now. They're from your ancestry previous generations ago. They can be things that are from past lives. I recently found out or had a lot of confirmation about some past life issues that I had thought I had, and I had them confirmed by someone, and as I did a past life regression. But they can come from the past lives, or they can come from family or friends in this life. But the point is, they're not yours. So some of it's not yours, and you'll make that connection, and then those can be released. But over time, what you do, if you do this cycle after cycle, you start to free yourself from all of that, all those things that were kind of controlling or motivating you that you weren't aware of. You free yourself of that. That's how you begin to live to your highest vibration and to your highest potential. But my best advice, kind of going back to the original question, how can I recognize the things that I don't know, is that those things will be revealed to you, but we probably won't be able to go all the way into infancy, perhaps. Though I've heard of people recovering memories even that far back, but it's probably not as important. You'll be able to uncover enough and you will be able to uncover things that could go back pretty far. Okay, so I hope that helps. So the next question, let's see, the next one is from Angela. So Angela said, what is the best way to learn how to trust yourself when using energy work? Okay, so very good question. And I think that this question, how I'm going to answer this question could be good for anybody who's asking a similar question. It doesn't have to just be about trusting yourself when you're doing energy work. It could be trusting yourself when you're using your intuition, trusting yourself when you're doing your spell work, trusting yourself when you're doing your rituals. So anywhere that you're doubting yourself, what I'm going to say is hopefully going to help. So the number one thing I will say to anybody who says I'm working on trust is the solar plexus. So the solar plexus is all about self-belief, and it contains our self-doubt as well. And it contains the power to transform our self-doubt into self-belief. It contains our confidence. So these are all the things that connect here. So here's what I would say. Work with the solar plexus as much as possible. And here are some ideas. So you can do the breath of fire, very simple breath. I'll just demonstrate for those who don't know. I've explained it a couple of times, but you, for anybody who needs a refresher or new here, you pretend like you're fogging up a mirror, okay? Like that. That is the type of breath we want. And then at some point, you close your mouth and you'll just do this through your nose. So there is this pumping of the belly. There's a very passive inhale that takes place in between each of those outbursts of exhale. And you can go slow and you can speed up, or you can start out fast and you might have to slow down because it is a breath that's kind of taxing. But what it does, it's very purifying. So number one, anybody who wanted to do some purifying breath work for Imbolc, that is one of the best breaths you could do. Do that for a couple minutes, very good for the solar plexus. You can use the fire mudra with or without the breath. So the fire mudra is where you bring your fingers together and then the palms come together and the thumbs stick up like this, and you can actually bring that right to the solar plexus and meditate or do your breath work for the solar plexus. You can work with any of the other traditional ways of balancing the solar plexus. So for example, movement. So some of the movements, there's always yoga. Yoga is one of the best ways to work with any of the chakras, but yoga isn't always accessible for everyone. But one pose that is typically accessible for a lot of people are forward folds. So you could do a forward fold anywhere. You could be sitting in a chair and forward fold. And so essentially what we're doing is we're compressing the stomach. That's where the solar plexus energetically is. And anything that compresses the stomach is going to be good for the solar plexus. So for a forward fold in a chair, you could do a forward fold standing up. I love a forward fold seated with the legs extended out in front of you. And you can put a pillow on your legs and then fold over that so your belly rests on the pillow. And you can hold that for several minutes. In yin yoga, that's called caterpillar pose. Awesome for the solar plexus. And you could get a shadow work prompt on like self-belief or something and then sit in that pose for several minutes and see what comes up as you contemplate the prompt. There's a lot of ideas. Any abdominal work would be connecting to the solar plexus. Working with your digestion. This is when it's always people are like, they say, I'm trying to learn how to trust myself. And then I say, have you had your probiotic today? So it seems weird, but the solar plexus is so connected to our digestion, and most of us have poor digestion, and so always trying to take a probiotic can be very good, especially if you know you're someone who has poor digestion. And then bringing in some self-belief practices. So one of the simplest things you can do is just drawing in the energy of self-belief. So simple. But I've taught this to people and they have told me it radically shifts things for you. It radically shifted them for me. So you basically just start tapping on the crown chakra. And self-belief is an energy like any other energy. These energies can be pulled in through intention. That's all we need. So we just tapping on the top of the head, drawing in the energy of self-belief. I'm drawing in the energy of self-belief. I'm drawing in the energy of self-belief. And I would say that 3 times as I tap on the crown. And then moving to the third eye, I'm drawing in the energy of self-belief. Drawing in the energy of self-belief. I'm drawing in the energy of self-belief. And then moving down to your throat and say it 3 times, down to the heart, down to your solar plexus right above the navel, the sacral chakra right below the navel. And then with the root, I usually just kind of imagine drawing the energy down into the base of my spine at that point, and or the tailbone is a good way to think of it. And then you say the mantra 3 times, and it's an incredible practice. And what you could do is you could run through that before you do your energy work and see how that helps. Um, so I hope that helps. But my best advice for anybody who's trying to work on their trust in any of their abilities or any of their work is get pretty intimate with the solar plexus. All right, hope that helps. All right, so anybody who's here live, here I see a few others joining. Hi, Sabrina. So anybody else who's here live, leave any questions you've got. Doesn't have to be about Imbolc. I got a few more to read here. This one's from Pamela. She said, when doing chakra work or spell work and you want to use corresponding planets, how exactly do you do this? Is it more than just working on certain days of the week? This is a great question. So you definitely can use the energy of the planets through working on specific days. So for those who don't know, Sunday is connected to the sun, Monday the moon, Tuesday Mars, Wednesday Mercury, Thursday Jupiter, Friday Venus, and Saturday Saturn. And on a side note, anybody who knows much about Saturn knows that kind of energy very restrictive, right? So something that's interesting is most people choose to get married or handfasted on a Saturday because it's the weekend and everyone's off of work, but that's the day of Saturn. So it's sort of a strange energy. Energetically, it's not always the best day to get married. So I would suggest people go for Fridays or Sundays because those are connected to Venus, the goddess of love, on Friday, and Sunday, the sun, which is like basically light and hope and joy. And so better days for weddings. If you have a wedding coming up and you haven't planned the date yet, think about that. Okay, so anyway, I digress. So getting back to how to work with the planetary energies. So you absolutely can do your workings on those days. You can work with colors, or other correspondences of the planet. So there's just so many of them. So you could just Google planetary correspondences and you'll find lots of charts. But for example, Jupiter is connected to amethyst and lapis are the stones, a few of the stones. Jupiter is connected to many, many herbs, but a few are bloodroot, balm of Gilead, chamomile. So bringing in correspondences for that planetary energy will then help strengthen that planetary energy in whatever you're doing in your practice. Another thing you can do is you can carve the planetary symbols into candles too. So if you wanted to connect, so let's say you knew some of the correspondences and you're connecting to let's say the sun, right? You want to bring in sun energy. So maybe we're working on Sunday, but perhaps you want to bring in a candle. So a good color for the sun is gold or yellow, and you can carve symbols of the sun into the candle. And that can be a way, or put the planetary symbols other places. You can kind of use them as like sigils too, where you could draw them and burn them and release them out to the universe, or if you wanted them to be more permanent, put them places to draw that planetary energy in your space. And another thing you can do is work with planetary hours. And I know that Pamela she's enrolled in our Demystifying Witchcraft course, which teaches all the foundations of witchcraft. So Pamela, you can go in and there's a video on planetary hours as well. So you can work with planetary hours, which are basically change every single day. And so each hour of the day is connected to a different planetary energy. So if you really want to stack planetary energy on top of each other of itself, you might do your spell. Let's say I'm doing a spell for communication. I could do it on a Wednesday in the planetary hour of Mercury. So there's a lot of ways for me to stack planetary energies, and then I could use some of the correspondences. I could get a colored candle. I always connect yellow to Mercury because of that connection to air, but some people connect light blue. And then I could bring in other things, other correspondences that connect to Mercury as well. And you can also call in planetary energies just the way that you would call in a god or goddess. They can be evoked just the same way we might call in like the elemental energy. So that's also an idea. But yeah, there are a lot of ways that you can work with planetary energies, and working with the days of the week is just the tip of the iceberg. But great question, and hope that helps answer that one. And then finally, I have a question here from Colleen, and she said, "What are some effective ways to work on or clear out of the root chakra?" So lots of ideas for the root. I love the grounding tree meditation. If you've never done it before, Google it. You'll find a lot of variations of it. We have a variation of it in our Demystifying Witchcraft course, and our Shadow Seekers membership also has a video on it too. Um, for those who are in either of those, you can get the grounding tree meditation there, but you can find these online. It's very simple. It's just imagining roots going down from your body into the earth, and some people will guide you to kind of connect to some energy in the earth and draw that energy up into the body. I love to um, connect to the roots of a great tree, kind of imagine a great tree nearby, connecting to the roots and drawing and beginning to breathe, inhale and exhale with the tree. So that's really grounding. You can do earthing, which is where you go barefoot. You can do it in your house or out of your house. I love going barefoot as much as possible because of that connection to the earth and how grounding it is. Mindful eating. So eating, very connected. The root chakra is all about our physical body. So anything that is working on your physical body, your physical health, is going to be a way to work with the energy of the root. But eating, especially, we eat so quickly or mindlessly because we're watching TV, or I work so much. I have to eat like while I'm working a lot of the time. But to really pause and slow down and really be mindful about what it's like to consume, right? To take in, to receive. That can be very grounding. Eating, and then related to that, eating earthy grounding foods, nuts, proteins, meats, root vegetables, very good for the root chakra. Putting your forehead to the ground is so incredibly grounding. So if you can get down on the ground in child pose, oh, so amazing to just put the forehead, put the third eye down on the mat. But you can also just place your forehead in your hands, and that can be very grounding. It's something we don't often think about. Or any poses where you can be just belly down. So the belly is also down, and the forehead can be very grounding. Work with the color red. Red is the color of the root chakra. Work with the element of earth, which we've kind of talked about with some of these other things. And just on a side note, anybody who works with deity and is open to working with deities of multiple pantheons, you might want to consider the god Ganesha. They say he lives in the root chakra of all people. He's a patron of mine, and so grounding to work with him. And he's basically the remover of obstacles as well, so you have that benefit too when you work with his energy. So I hope that helps with some ideas for working with the root chakra. So if anybody has anything else they want to ask, put it in the chat. I'll answer anything. It doesn't have to be about Imbolc. While I'm waiting to see if there's anything else people want to ask, let me tell you about what's coming up. So we have an Imbolc ritual coming up on Saturday, February 3rd. It's at 4:30 p.m. Pacific, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, and this is our ritual Elemental Vows. So I mentioned earlier, Imbolc is a great time to take vows. So we are going to be honoring the goddess Brigid. We're going to be doing several practices to balance the elemental energy within us, and then we're going to use what we learn through that practice to write a set of elemental vows that will help us balance the energies within, but also create a plan for for the coming cycle, for the coming wheel, right? Because we're about to move into astrological new year. So new year is not just it's not the 1st of January when we're thinking about it astrologically. It's it's the spring equinox. So we're in those final 6 weeks before we come to the new year, to the turning over. And so this is a great time to to take those vows of how we're going to, work with the energy of the physical, how we're going to work with the energy of the mental and the emotional and the spiritual, and how we're going to move forward in all of those areas of our lives. So I love this ritual. We did it last year. It was the first time we ever did it in public, online. It was always private in our own private coven up until that point. It's one of our most popular rituals. So I really hope you'll join us. And so for those who would love to come but can't come at that time because it's online, we're recording it. So anybody who gets a ticket through donation will get a recording of the event, and you can watch it back in your own time and do the practice then. So it's easy to get a ticket. If you're in our Shadow Seekers membership, your tickets are covered. It's a benefit of your membership. If you're not in our Shadow Seekers membership, you can get your ticket by a donation of as little as $1 at Eventbrite. I'll drop the link below the video, and I hope that I will see some of you there. But I'm getting really excited for Imbolc season. Imbolc's always one of my favorite Sabbats, so I always get really excited this time of year. And then after that, on 2/7, that's next week's Ask Aislin, I will be here talking about the earth element. Okay, so if anybody has any other questions, put them in the chat. Kurt said, "Do I do anything for Lupercalia?" So I do not. I know many witches do. I do not. We follow the traditional wheel of the year, and so Lupercalia is not one of the traditional 8 Sabbats. But it is a great Sabbat or not Sabbat, but a great holiday to celebrate. But we don't do anything for it, unfortunately. But good question. Um, so I also wanted to mention before I sign off that our Shadow Seekers membership is opening at the end of February. We're going to kick it off with a workshop on shadow work and energy work that I taught back in September, but I'm teaching it again. I'm going to be adding some information to it. So if you took it back in September or end of August, I think it was, you could take it again and you'll learn something new, and you'll actually solidify the information that you learned before. This is a free workshop, and it will give people an idea, a taste of what would happen in our Shadow Seekers membership if they joined. So look for that. Look for more information about that free workshop coming up at the end of February, and then our invitation to join our Shadow Seekers membership. Anybody who thinks they might be interested in taking their shadow work, energy work to a deeper level with us in our Shadow Seekers membership, let me know, and I'll put you on the wait list, and we prioritize people on the wait list for membership to that. And then also our course, Demystifying Witchcraft, which is a course on the foundations of witchcraft. That is a 13-module course, is coming out hopefully sometime in next month, but it's looking like it probably will be early March that will be coming out. So look for more information on that as well. But I'd just like to let people know that's what's coming up. And that's ways that you can work with us at, at a deeper level. Okay, so I don't see any other questions here. If I missed anything, I'll go back and answer that later in the chat. And I hope that everyone has a fantastic Imbolc. I hope this video gave you some ideas of how to celebrate. And until next time, blessed be.